says, there we go. Okay, great. So thanks for being here this evening, and I'm super excited about these calls. I actually was really looking forward to tonight, and I knew we were going to be a small group, but we are mighty, and this call is going to be recorded, and that's one of the beauties of doing these community of practice calls is that we can record them, and we'll be creating a YouTube page where we will post all of these. Melissa has probably experienced that with the ICF coaches, our Christian coaches, and I think it's proved to be a pretty good tool. Would you agree, Melissa? Yeah, good. Great. So we will send this out to anyone who is joining us by recording, and I'm super excited that Haddon is going to be hosting with me tonight. And Haddon, you want to say a word to the group?
Well, sure. Hello, everybody. It's an honor to join you guys tonight. I know that I kind of had a little bit of a speaking moment at our Discover Coaching Summit, but it's a joy and an honor to serve with each of you, and hopefully over the next few months and even years, I'll continue to get to know each of you more. So thankful to be here tonight.
Thanks so much, Haddon. I appreciate it. He'll be sharing some things with us a little bit later about some new coaching note forms that we're going to be having, along with some other good info. So, and hopefully at the end, we'll be able to do kind of a quick breakout practice session with what we're going to be covering tonight. And I just really want these to be very practical times where we get to share with each other and get to know one another. Super grateful for Chuck being here tonight, who is standing in as our connection minister at our Nolensville campus. And so appreciate that. It's always so great to have our connection ministers with us. And so I'm very happy to see so many coaches. So, all right, so let's dive in, talk a little bit about what we are going to discuss. Hi, Sandy. Thanks for being here. Just getting started. I am going to try to get my computer to cooperate and see if we can get this shared screen really quick. So those of you who have done these maybe before know that, sometimes it cooperates. And so we're going to just hope that it does. Let's see what we got here. And I'm looking for it. Okay, here we go. All right. Can you all see the screen there? Okay, fantastic. Okay, very good. So let me just open us with a word of prayer. How's that? Love to always have the opportunity to pray over and for y'all. So let's open with a word of prayer, and then we'll kind of head into these slides. Father, I thank you so much for this group, for this team, for every coach, Lord, every facilitator who gives of their time and their energy to invest in others and to help them discover new things about themselves and about their unique calling. And God, we just pray that these calls in general would be helpful and encouraging, and that tonight would just be one that is relaxed and fun and full of good info. So bless each one of these, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So tonight, I thought that I would share a little bit with you about our Elevate conference recently. I talked a little bit about this at the summit. We hosted a conference for other churches to come join us, for us to be able to share ideas and to share different ways of doing things. And one of the hot topics, Haddon's group actually was our biggest breakout, which was awesome. And that was about first-time guests. There was a ton of interest in that, and he did a great job. I hosted a session on having a really intentional membership process, and I thought, as I was thinking about tonight, that it would be helpful for me to share some of this info with you and to talk a little bit about why membership matters. So turn camera on. All right. Sorry, guys. So I just wanted to share a few thoughts that I have really been tossing around and thinking about, trying to understand the importance of membership, where we see membership with a church biblically. I've really wrestled with, is this a thing, for the past 2 to 3 years? And the conclusion I've reached has really been impactful for me, and I hope it will be for you too. And I think sometimes your coachees in your Discover sessions may wonder, why is this so much work? I'm sure if you have been coaching for a little while, you have had questions about, why is our membership process so intensive? And we want you to know there is method behind the perceived madness. We really have put a lot of energy over the years into helping make sure we have an intentional process. And so I just want to share some of the back context of that with you. So why have church membership? What makes membership meaningful? I'm going to move my camera over here. I think some very profound passages in Acts help us see the reasons that having belonging to a church family is so important. And I think one of the key passages for me has been in Acts 2:41 through 47. And so I would love it if somebody who has kind of access to a Bible, and that can be on your phone, but I'd love it if somebody wanted to look this up in Acts 2:41 through 47. And we're just kind of look at this passage a little bit more in depth than the others. There are quite a few listed here in the next 4 bullets. But these are just some really interesting passages that I think are very relevant to several aspects of our membership process and help us understand why it is so valuable. So anybody have Acts 2:41 through 47, and would you be willing to read it? Yes, Kevin, please go for it. Awesome.
All right. So let's see. All right. Acts 2:41 through 47. So those who accepted his message were baptized, and that day about 3,000 people were added to them. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and signs were being performed through the apostles. Now all the believers were together and held all things in common. They sold their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all as any had need. Every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple and broke bread from house to house. They ate their food with joyful and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Every day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved.
Excellent.
Hey, and I
Kevin,
don't care what my diet says anymore. After hearing breaking bread twice joyfully, I'm going to be clinging to that.
Adding some carbs back into your diet.
That's right.
Totally
Seems
agree
scriptural
with
if you
that.
ask me.
It's biblical right there.
That's right.
Can't argue with it.
That's right.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kevin. That was wonderful. Felt like I was hearing from the Bible app. You got a great voiceover voice. So
Thank you.
I love love this passage because I think it, first of all, it mentions twice that members were being added to the number. So right there, I think it signifies to us that they were very intentional about the number of people they had in their congregation. And by number, it sort of connotes that they were keeping track. You know, they were very aware of who was in their congregation and what was being, how those people were interacting with them and committing to them. And I think that that is really important for us to understand, that the from the beginning, the church was a family of people who kept track of each other, who knew that one another was there, who were, as we see here, they did fellowship together, they prayed together, they gave to one another, and they were together frequently. And they did life together. And so I think there was a deep accountability there. So this passage is also interesting to me for one other specific reason, and I will give someone a prize who guesses what that reason is. There's something represented in these 6 verses that we talk about a lot in our sessions. And I'll give you a hint. It starts with G. Anybody want to take a guess? Do you see the 5 G's represented there? Thank you for the laugh. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, really, we see all 5 G's represented here. They were gathering together. They were giving to each other. They were serving together and going. Obviously, Gospel Conversations was a part of that initial process. So I love that we see here very tangibly in Scripture how each of those 5 G's have been represented from the beginning. So I just thought that was an interesting thing that might be helpful to you as you think about your sessions. If you have people who are curious about, why do we have membership? Why would I even be involved in that? I've grown increasingly passionate in feeling that membership is very biblical, and it is very, very important that we as church leaders take it seriously, as well as our church family members. So there's some other verses there I'll let you kind of go through on your own. But the next thing is really the mutual accountability. And if somebody wants to look up Hebrews 13:17, I would love for someone to read that verse. But this is another big aspect of membership, that we are accountable to one another. Anybody have that one? Yes, Chuck, would you read that for me?
Obey your leaders and submit to them, since they keep watch over your souls as those who will give an account, so that they can do this with joy and not with grief, for that would be unprofitable for you.
Great. So there is a great demonstration in that very short verse of the relationship that God has designed in the church between the elders, the leaders, the overseers, and those who are in the church. That the leaders are responsible to be watching over, keeping track of, caring for those in the flock, and those in the church family are to be accountable to those leaders. So membership helps us make that possible. It helps us keep track of our people and know who's with us. So again, another verse there. I will send these out so you can kind of have these available to look at. But a passage that we're all very familiar with, or hopefully, and if not, I'd love for you to become very familiar with these 2 passages in 1 Corinthians 12 and Romans 12. These are really the passages that Paul talks about the gifts and the body of Christ. And especially in 1 Corinthians 12, this is where he talks about we are all members of that body and different parts of the body, and all are necessary. And one can't say to the other, I don't need you. So they're very interdependent. So membership, again, he's even references, every member of the body in this passage. So it's really important that every one of us is playing our part, and that we, again, are accountable and belonging to each other. And the last one is Acts 20, verse 28. And I may just read that one to you so you don't have to stress finding it. So it says, be on guard for yourselves and for all the flock of which the Holy Spirit has appointed you as overseers to shepherd the church of God, which he purchased with his own blood. So again, we see that there's an aspect of congregational care in that accountability, and that the shepherds of the church are to be taking care and understand who's in that body with them. So I don't know if that helps, but I thought, it's something that's been on my heart. I've sought answers to understand, is it really important and biblical? And I strongly feel that it is. And I'm curious, do y'all have any thoughts or questions about any of that? Is it helpful?
I think when I think of the early church, I don't think of church as large as ours. So I think we have a challenge. We have to go out of our way to find who's there and to connect. I think it's real easy for any of us to just go to the theater, watch the show, and leave. So that's
Yes.
not what these verses talk about.
Yes. That hits the nail on the head, Rich. It really does, and really speaks to why we have the intentional membership process we have. So we have very set systems to be able to help people engage, to know who they are, to help them know themselves, to help them make connections so that they aren't lost. And I would say our primary mechanism for this type of pastoral care is through groups. It's so important for people to be involved in groups so that they can care for each other this way. That really probably is more reflective of what the early church was like, about that size. So super important. And
Yeah,
I think
Michelle,
we,
I was gonna say, I would add, I think that's so important, and that's kind of what jumps out to me in Acts 2, verse 46, where it says they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple and broke bread from house to house. So that kind of covers the gathering and the groups,
yeah,
and why those two are both important but distinct. And I don't know about anybody else, but like in coaching sessions, that's probably one of the things that I kind of see the most is people are plugged into the worship service, but not always have found a group, or, yeah, I'm going to get around to that, or that kind of thing. And they just don't see the priority in it. And I think we have some good kind of maybe bullet points that we've been given about, that's where people miss you. That's where you can pray. And that's where you have kind of the affinity. And there's good reasons why that's important. But clearly, even scripture distinguishes those two and emphasizes that they're both important.
I love it. You're exactly right. And that is one of our deep hopes, is that people will grow in their understanding of how important that is. I've just recently had a situation with a couple who have both unfortunately been diagnosed with cancer, and they were not in a group, and they don't have any family, they don't have any children, and they were so isolated. And so we're really trying to help them figure out, how can we build in this care around them that they need, without having had that group established. And so a deep, deep growing passion in me to help people do that, and really see the importance of us being the bridge that helps them get from being new to the church to being plugged in. So that's a huge piece of this. Yeah, great discussion, guys. All right, so let me move us on and just say, so why have a membership process? Well, it provides opportunities to get acquainted. It helps us as church leaders know them, and vice versa. It helps them know each other. Gives them kind of some insider info. This gives them a little bit deeper look behind the curtain, than they might get as members who are just attending church worship services. This helps them understand the mission, the vision, the values. And so we really want to capitalize on the time that they give us with giving them some of that deeper knowledge of who we are and where we're headed. It honestly communicates intentionality to them, I hope. So for all those protesters who are kind of upset in the beginning that they have to do a process, by the time they get to the end of it, I think we have communicated to them, we're just really trying to be intentional. So, and it honestly reveals to us as church leaders who God is sending to us. It helps us, every now and then we can run reports that show us, all right, what's the top spiritual gift that we're seeing in our people? Or what passions are they bringing? What skill set? And you begin to see patterns and methods with that are very helpful to us in leadership. So pretty great. So the last thing is, why have high expectation membership? We're not just asking people to come to a class, we're asking them to get deeply involved. We recently had a situation I thought hadn't handled so well. It was a person who was actually coming for membership to be able to get a discount on one of our programs that there's a cost associated with. And sometimes people do that for mission trips, or sometimes they do it to come to our coach training. And we were really convicted by that, because she literally told Haddon that she was not going to be attending church here. She was very honest about it, which was great. And he was able to say to her, it's really important to us that our members are participating in these 5 Gs. And he kind of walked through those with her and said, do you feel like you can commit to doing these things? And she said, no. And I think it was a meaningful experience for her to realize, oh my goodness, this is what church membership is about. So we have an awesome opportunity that ended so well. And that has really been was a great win-win. And I really applauded him for that. That even taught me some great things about talking to our members about what we hope for them and why we do what we do. So we know that church is not a spectator sport. Yes, thanks, Kevin. We don't want people just sitting and, as Rich so aptly put it, coming to watch the show and then leaving, This is about involvement. It's about participation. It's about commitment. Every member is a minister, and we thoroughly believe that, and we want them to believe it too. And the more we can mobilize, the greater our reach. So, 150 ministers can do a lot across our 9 campuses, but if we can mobilize 10,000 ministers, imagine the difference that would make in our entire city, in our world. So we're, if you can tell, very passionate. And I just thought, sometimes it's really good to share those things with you all as leaders who are in this process deeply. So any other thoughts or comments about that? Okay. Well, that was topic 1. And then we're going to kind of just move through different topics that I think are impactful, things that came up at the summit that you had questions about. One of the big things that we consistently get questions about, and as we have new coaches come aboard, this is always a really important thing, I think, for us to address. And that is, what do I do when my participant doesn't have a profile? How do I lead them through the session? And so I thought I would just very practically go through this with you pretty quickly. But I just wanted to share some good questions I think that you can ask to help you if you have someone show up who hasn't done their spiritual gifts assessment even, or their DISC. So what I would say is, excuse me. Wrong slide, wrong button. I don't even know how I got there, to be honest. Here we go. All right. So this is an invitation to spend extra time hearing about their story and just, dialoguing more about their experience, and really you're going to be putting on that coach hat where you're trying to draw information out of them that will be beneficial for them to be able to verbalize or to think about. And so asking some questions like, what is one of the ways that you've served in the past that you really enjoyed? Or, another flip side of that, what's something you've done that you really did not enjoy, that you want to make sure you don't get yourself into again? that can be really telling and gives you some good insight into what areas they might enjoy serving in, the types of things that God might be leading them to. Another one is there any way that you've wanted to be involved in church in the past, but you just haven't had the time? Maybe there's something that they've thought about for a long time, but didn't feel they have the skills or the equipping. You can always press into that a little bit. Was it really time that kept you from being involved, or was it another cause, maybe a lack of equipping, or maybe even a little bit of fear? So just talking with them about some of the ways that they've found to be interesting to be able to serve, but maybe haven't had that opportunity. Anybody else have a thought-provoking question that you've used or think might be helpful in that process?
I don't have a thought-provoking question, but I've occasionally had people who have said, I don't want to be so involved anymore.
Okay.
I feel like I have done so much in the past, and I'm tired, and I want to come to church, and I want to be a member, but I don't want to really be involved.
Yeah.
How do you address that?
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's real at times that people feel burned out. Maybe they've come from a painful experience at their previous church. Maybe they were over involved and, were taken advantage of. There's a lot of different reasons that can be the case. And so I encourage you to just use those good questioning skills of, maybe trying to go a little deeper with them on that. Is this something you feel like will be a short-term break? Would you like to think about what would be ideal in the future based on the limited amount of time that you have? Are you needing some healing from one of those things in the past? And how could we support you in that? And I think it's sometimes affirming to say, that's okay. We want you, yes, to be involved, but we also have to have seasons of Sabbath and rest. And so, the beautiful thing about you being a coach is you don't have to coerce them into anything. You can support and encourage, but, your job is really just to be the sounding board or the bridge that helps them get to where they need to go next. And maybe that's taking a break for a while. Does that help, Patsy?
Definitely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Michelle,
So-
I would add too that there are times where I've felt in some of the conversations I've had where somebody is just as they tell their story, like they're running all over the place, and maybe they have say school age or high school kids, and they're doing maybe travel sports and all these other things, and they just sound exhausted. And then we get to talking about serving, and you can almost see just like, oh, where am I going to find the time kind of thing. And I always try to tell them that, look, it's not my job as a coach to prescribe what you should be doing or how often or all those kind of things. But, that is really between you and the Lord. You should be open to what the Lord leads you to do. And there may be seasons where you are less active in service roles, and there may be other seasons where you're extremely active in service roles. And the main thing is to be, and that's what we want to do, is kind of tune you to be receptive and open to what God's leading. And I think that could work for that same situation too, where somebody is not wanting to serve. There may be times where people want to serve, but feel like almost guilty, like, I've got so many things going on. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd welcome the feedback, but I kind of think it could work either way. Like, you need to be open to God's leading if you're resistant to serving at all, but you also need to be open to God's lead. God's not trying to exhaust everybody and wear them out. And sometimes we only have so many
Exactly.
hours in the day.
Yeah,
I'm also,
that's
Michelle,
so true.
I'm also thinking
Yeah.
about, we don't want to limit the only option for people to do is to actually serve in some kind of activity. So if you look at the
Right.
5 Gs, gather, I mean,
Yeah.
that could be part of the just common regular participation in the worship service is one of the 5 Gs, and that's
Yeah.
more than a lot of people do. Giving, you can give without finding time and bandwidth. Gospel conversations as you go throughout your work. So I think you can encourage them by saying, maybe that one slice of, roll your sleeves up and teach this class or do this, maybe that will come, and maybe there's a time for rest and healing and what have you. But I think kind of focusing on some of those other elements, you can still be very connected and plugged in, even in a time of burnout, even if all
Yeah.
you do is come to church and just hear and absorb and start to build a relationship with people, because they're going to be at different places, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well said. And I think the nice thing sometimes is just to have someone to walk alongside you in that discussion a little bit, help you process it, because frankly, we don't take a lot of time to think about those things. There's just a lot going on at any given time in our lives that prohibits us from thinking deeply about why we are not more involved in church. So that's a real gift that you can give to them, just letting them process and withholding any kind of judgment, So, okay, good deal. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment because I've messed up my view. And then I'm going to go back and see if I can do it again. There we go. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the next thing is I would encourage you just focus on their spiritual gifts. Very simply, if that's the one, that's probably the most important piece of this is what are their gifts, the limited time you have with them. This is a good time just to focus specifically on that. And the very best tool for that really is in your Discover You booklet. And what I would suggest to you is turn over to page 3 in that little booklet. Keep a copy of it with you in your binder. And just spend a little bit of time with them, asking them which of these seems like it might be true about you. Give them a minute to kind of glance over them. If they're not really sure, if they can't just from reading it say, yeah, that kind of sounds like me, I see that in myself. You can ask them, scanning over this listing of gifts, which seem true about you. How is God if they can't tell you, you might ask them, how's God recently worked through you to serve someone? And give them a moment to think about what are some patterns or themes they see of God opening doors to use them. And then simply ask, looking through this listing of spiritual gifts, which of those do you think he gave you in that moment? Do you see that as a repeating pattern? Another question I don't have here, but one that I've used in the past is, what would your spouse or your siblings say is one of these gifts that's true for you? And giving them a little bit of an opportunity to think through someone else's eyes can kind of release the feeling of, oh, I'm bragging on myself, or, I'm tooting my own horn, but that's sometimes an effective way to help them think through that. And maybe the last one is, earlier you mentioned enjoying blank, whatever that may be, some serving opportunity they've done in the past. What gift do you think you were using when you did that? How was God empowering or equipping you to serve in that moment? And then just dialogue with them a little bit about what that might look like in the future. Do you feel like this is a gift that God is calling you to use now? And maybe if it's one of those people who's in a season of Sabbath and rest and recovery, when you start to feel excited about using that gift again, would you reach out to me so that we can find a way for you to engage that gift? So hopefully that gives you a little bit of, a few tools in your chest to use in that moment. And I would say then try to dig into their passions during this time too. if you get their ministry passions. Once again, my camera keeps going in the middle of my slides. There we go. What's something in the world that's breaking your heart? And what are you doing about it? What would you like to do about it? What do you wish you could do about it? Another great question is, in what way do you wish you could make a difference? If there's something out there in the world, some cause, some terrible problem, how do you wish you could make a difference? And the last one, what's an activity you really enjoy? And how could you use that for ministry? So recently, one of the ladies in our office, some of you may know her, Jen. I'm going to brag on her for a minute. She has been wanting to exercise more. So I've admired her because she went into basically the town Facebook group that they have. She lives down south. And she basically said, is anybody interested in a meetup, a walking meetup? And so she now has had 2 people join her, and one of them came to church with her last week. So, I mean, it's so simple that we can use these things that we enjoy, or even everyday tasks, to involve other people to come along with us. So it's a great time to encourage them about that. So I think hopefully this gives you some freedom in those sessions where you don't have a profile, maybe have a little bit of a break from the norm, where you can just have a great conversation asking them good questions. So any thoughts or anything you'd like to add? I know many of you have done many of these sessions. Any good tips for us?
Yeah, I just want to add that I love this perspective, Michelle, and because there are times, I'll just raise my hand and say, "Hey, I'm guilty of this." I know you would never use that term. You're such an encourager, and that's not your point. But I feel like I can see where I've fallen short at times when I haven't had a profile and thought, "Well, there's not much we can talk about," and I just talk about the importance of serving, but it's kind of more generic. I love that these are really some different ways to get really into it a little more without having that, by kind of probing and leading them with some of those questions, because we're just trying to spur that thought on, and then let the Holy Spirit, right, prompt them for what they should be doing, or how they're to live out their faith. And so a lot of it, I think, is just getting them to think about it, and rather than say, "Oh, this is important," and then you move on and don't really say much about it. So I really appreciate these tips, because I think that will change some of how I approach things. I haven't had very many times where I haven't had a profile, but it'll change how I handle that when I do.
Yeah, love it. That's fantastic. Great.
Because I
Thank
think
you for
about
that.
something like, if I had, people might say, "Well, I wish I had $1 million to give to this cause or that cause." And it's like, to your point, what are you doing about the things that break your heart? Okay, maybe I can give $5 a week, a month, whatever. Maybe I can't
Right.
do 1 million, and then I'm thinking of how even that could motivate other people to say, "Yeah, I don't like that either. And so this is all I can do, but I'm doing something about it," and I may not be able to underwrite the whole ministry, and that sometimes we get intimidated and think, "Well, if I can't do all of it, I shouldn't do anything." And that's not the case. So
Exactly. Exactly. And I experienced that a few years ago, Kevin. I really was passionate about the fact that many of our refugees were not being able to assimilate. They're not being, and for that reason, they feel alienated. They feel as if they're not part of society. And what could I do to that? So I started supporting a missionary who is working specifically in that group. I'm not there physically, but I am contributing a solution or part of a solution. So I think there's lots of ways to encourage them to be involved in the things they really care about, and really emphasizing that the importance of those God-given passions. So great. Okay. I want to turn this over to Haddon to talk a little bit about the coach notes entry that he and Jen have so diligently worked on this year. They're going to give you a preview of some changes that have been made. So, Haddon, is there anything else I need to say before I turn it over to you?
Did you want to talk about serving opportunities on the website?
I do, but I think it would be great for you. I will put that in the chat, but I want to make sure that we have time to kind of look at those coaching notes. So,
Okay, perfect.
and we can always do that in the next one. That's the beauty of it, right?
That's true. Well, everybody, we kind of northwinded. We mentioned it at the coaching summit, but we do have new coaching notes that I would love to take credit for it. But Jen Cohen is really the mastermind behind that new form. And so I'm going to go ahead and we spoke about it, but I wasn't able to show you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my one of my screens with you. Let's see.
Find that share button.
Yes. Hold on one second. We practiced this so that this would not happen.
It's never easy when you're on the spot.
It's not. Okay.
Jen's laughing at you if that makes you feel any better.
You got this, Haddon. I believe in you.
I appreciate that. Why is it not showing up?
Hey, Jen, send in the chat the link. Do you have it?
I can send the Brentwood ones, but everybody's
Yeah.
going to have their own campus. But yes, I'll send it.
Yeah, I was thinking that might be good because then they can click on it if they need it a little bit bigger. Haddon, did you figure that out?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we just wanted to show you this. As a reminder, we have been using this on the Brentwood campus for a number of months now, and it seems to have gone over really well. It seems to be a good format for our coaches. And I'll just go ahead and go through this, and then after we go through it, if there's any questions that you may have, we can talk through those. And so this will be the new coaching format. It's going to be the same up here where you see first name, you see last name, email address, and mobile phone number. Remember, just a quick reminder, that this is the contact information for the coachee. So this is the person that you are coaching. It's their first name, their last name, their email address, and their mobile phone number. And then you get down to coaching name or coach's name, and that would be you as the Discover coach. And then you'll also provide the date of coaching session. So when you click that little calendar button, it pops up and allows you to choose a day based on the calendar. And then some of what really changed was just, and a lot of the reason behind this was there was confusion for the Discover coordinator on each campus. There was some confusion as to what really required a follow-up and who does that follow-up go to. And so for the Discover coordinator's sake, we kind of changed these questions a little bit to help us understand what truly generates a task in ministry platform. And when I say task in ministry platform, that's internal lingo and language that we use as connection ministers and Discover coordinators. But that is how your coachee is getting followed up with through these ministry platform tasks. So if we look on the screen, it says potential ministerial follow-up. So these are going to generate follow-up for your coachee if needed. Question, does the individual profess Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior? You can hit yes, you can hit no. If you hit no, you'll see that it says a minister will reach out to follow up. So we just want you to know, if you have said no, this person does not profess faith in Jesus Christ, we're going to follow up. The connection minister on your campus is going to follow up with that coachee. You can hit coach is unclear. You can also say you forgot to ask. Has the participant been baptized by immersion? You can hit yes, no. If you hit no, you'll see a new box that has appeared that says, did they state why they do not want to be baptized? That information is just helpful for the connection minister on your campus to be able to follow up with them. That way, they already know some of the background to what is taking place and to the conversation that you have already had with them. You can say coach is unclear. You can say that this person, your coachee, is ready to take that next step. And again, you'll see underneath in the red letters, it says a minister will reach out to schedule. And so we just want you to know that that's being taken care of and they're being followed up with. You could also hit forgot to ask. The next question, is the participant currently seeking membership with Brentwood Baptist? So not everyone who goes through the Discover class and a coaching session actually wants to join the church. Sometimes these people just want to take advantage of a resource that's available to them, not in a bad way, but in a very good way. And so, we allow that. And so we do ask that you just verify with them, hey, are you actually seeking membership here at the church? You would hit yes. You can hit no. Again, just for further understanding of that conversation that's been had, it'll ask you in the drop-down box, did they state a reason for not wanting membership? Or you could say you forgot to ask. Then we have a box question that says other additional ministerial follow-up needed. As you can see, it's not a type-in box. So there's just a few different options when you click that drop down. So this may be the need for grief resources. Maybe this coachee is falling on some hard times, may need some benevolence resources available to them. There may be a need for theological questions and follow-up. They may have questions that you as a coach don't feel equipped to answer, although we want you to feel equipped as best as possible, but sometimes questions come up that are just difficult to answer. And so feel free to choose that as a selection, and the connection minister will follow up with them. There's also an option for a referral to the Center for Christian Coaching to meet with a certified Christian coach. So we do want to just highlight that opportunity that's available. These certified Christian coaches are there and available, and they're ready for people. I think we have more coaches than we do coachees in that system specifically. And so I know that they would love a referral to them just for some Christian coaching.
Haddon,
So those-
can you give us guidelines on that last one? When would we want to refer them to a coach?
That's a good question. Sandy, I know that you were on this call. Would you have any answer to that, or when you think
Sure,
they should be
sure.
referred?
So, if they are in a life transition of some sort, if they're looking for, a new career plan, if they're going through a divorce, if they're, there's just all kinds of life circumstances that people would like to just have a safe place to talk through, whatever their life circumstances are. It's a one-on-one conversation, confidential, and it's just a place to process anything that they're stuck in, any kind of subject matter. So we have a team of certified, vetted coaches that are all ready and have agreed to coach any congregant 3 times without charge. And so it's just a great safe place to process whatever life circumstances are happening in their lives.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandy. Chuck, I know you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I know, I think Jen said this was a Brentwood specific form. So this doesn't exist for the other campuses, but are these same things like what was just mentioned with the coaching? Are those available to our Nolensville coaches, or is this just an example of what's at Brentwood?
That's a great question, Jen. If you have anything to add, feel free to add this after I answer. But yes, the Center for Christian Coaching would be an option for any of the campuses. This form, although we're using it now on the Brentwood campus, we are hoping to launch this form on all of the campuses. Now, that being said, the Discover coordinator for that campus, along with the connection minister, will look over this, and there will, just like there are now, or there was in the old system of notes, the coaching notes will look a little different based on the resources and options on those campuses. But specifically, the Center for Christian Coaching could be an option for all campuses.
Can I say one more thing about that? So we have almost every campus represented on our coaching team. And we also do coaching in 3 forms. In person, can be virtual, or on a telephone conversation. So they don't necessarily have to go to the same congregation, the same campus, but those are some options.
Perfect. Jen, would you add anything to that if you're still here?
Nope, you guys answered it perfectly. Center for Christian Coaching is not campus specific. It's a church-wide ministry. So it's offered to everybody, everybody here. So if somebody is, you're coaching somebody and you sense that there is an area that they'd like to move forward in, that they're a little bit stuck, instead of, like, sometimes in the past you'd say, oh, maybe this person needs to do counseling. But we also found that referring to Center for Christian Coaching helps in that moment of that unstuck. And it's something that we're really proud to be able to offer. So this would be on all the campus forms because it is a church-wide ministry.
Perfect. Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, just to confirm, would it be accurate to say that this should not come as a surprise to the coachee? In other words, if as they're telling their story, to use a couple examples that Sandy mentioned, like they're talking about struggle and trying to find a new career, figuring out their career path or whatever, or they're mention, dealing with a divorce or whatever it is, that we should offer that to them before we would put it on this form. In other words, that it wouldn't just come out of the blue that, hey, so-and-so said you needed this. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yes. I would definitely offer it to them and see if they are interested, because Sandy and her team of coaches, they're not going to get anywhere if that person isn't interested in doing it to begin with. So I would go ahead and just ask them, hey, here's an incredible resource. The first 3 sessions are free. I think you could really benefit from it. And if they're interested, then we would put that on the form. That's a great question, Kevin. Thank you. Rich.
Sorry, how does the coaching differ from the grief resources?
So for example, just off the top of my head, grief resources, on the Brentwood campus specifically, we have different, golly, what's it called, Michelle? We have different grief classes.
Grief Share.
Grief Share, thank you. And so Grief Share would be like a grief resource. I'm sure there are others out there as well, that I can't think of. I know there are ones as well for like family members who care for people with Alzheimer's or dementia. That would be considered a grief resource as well. Not because they've passed, but you're still grieving what you're losing in this current situation. And so that's where that would differ.
Okay, so it sounds like that's like a group environment versus the coach is one-on-one.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you.
Exactly right. Yes, sir. Great questions, everybody. Well, let's keep moving forward. And so this is going to be ministry specific follow-up. And I want to be respectful of your time, so I'll try to go through this quickly. But ministry specific follow-up. So really we focus a lot on groups and serving when it comes to coaching notes. And so just to kind of go back to what Michelle was talking about, if somebody doesn't have a profile, if they didn't do the assessment, these are two topics that I always go to because I know in our coaching notes we're being asked of it. So I'll ask about what groups looks like for them in their life, and then also what serving looks like. But in the ministry, or in the notes here, we see groups. The participant is already connected to a group, interested now in connecting to a group/focus study, interested in having a mentor, and or interested in leading a group. Now there's one, two, three or four different things in this statement. And so if you click that this person, the coachee, is interested in one of these things, you'll see underneath it comes up in the red, groups follow-up. It says, please tell us more about their interest. And so as much as you can share with us about why you clicked that they are interested now in connecting, we would love to know that information, because a group interest may go to one person on the team at your campus, whereas if they're interested in being a mentor, that might go to somebody else. So it differs campus to campus. But again, the more information you can get on that, the better will be following up with them, and the least amount of time it'll take to follow up with them.
And I'll
You
add
can
a
all,
little piece to that, Haddon.
Yep.
And this is how I train the Discover coordinators, when we create a task for this follow-up for that group's minister, we include whatever's in those notes. So if you put young couple looking for a Sunday on-campus group, that's really good information for the group minister when they follow up. So whatever's put in that box does get transferred over into that task, which is a really good way of communicating.
Perfect. Yes. The more information we can know on our end as ministers and staff, the better we'll be. So then you can also click not interested in groups at this time. The next one would be serving. The participant is already connected to a service area. They are interested now in connecting to a service area. We'll come back to this. They're still praying about where to serve, or they're not interested at this time. Going back to, if they are interested now in connecting to a service area, you will see a drop down that says follow up in red, and it says serving opportunities. Now this is there's multiple options here. So you click the caret, and again, this will change campus to campus, but most of it should be fairly the same. But you'll see an opportunity for care ministry, guest services, preschool, children, students, embrace. That's Brentwood and Station Hill specific. Senior adults, discover class, such as a facilitator, maybe a coach, or even just supporting, set up and tear down and all of that. Worship ministry, production ministry, and other. And so if you were to say other, for example, you would just put in the notes, what does other consist of? What are they passionate about? What do they want to get connected to? How can we help them take that next step? All right. And then the last part down here is miscellaneous follow-up. And you see that in the red. It says, would the participant like information from additional ministries, such as missions, men's, women's, FAM, which is foster and adoption ministry, the Center for Christian Coaching, our residency program? So you can say yes, please connect them to receive information from the ministry selected below. If you click yes, those options, again, this is Brentwood specific, it'll look different for your campus, but those options are below here. And this is just information. So it's not necessarily serving with them, but it's just wanting to gain more information about those ministries or programs. Or you can say no, not at this time. The final box right here at the bottom, it says final thoughts, comments on the Discover Connection session. If there's anything on here or if there's anything in your head, your mind, that you would like to share with the Discover coordinator for your campus and the connection minister on your campus, this would be the place to do that. And so typically because I am a coach myself, I'll fill this out and I'll say some statement just to remember maybe their attitude or their heart posture, just something I'm thankful for in them or something I'm excited about for them. But if there was a session where you have some concerns, um, or just some additional thoughts, we would love for you to put those there so that we can read through those. And again, just know our people, know who wants to join our church and how we can help them best. So any further questions on the coaching notes as a whole? I know we're out of time tonight, but just wanted to ask that. Rich.
So I do like you had, and I have notes to remind me to ask about some of these things. So this page you just showed, I'm not going to be able to remember all of the entries that are in there. So what's the thought on having the laptop and having it open to this page while we're having the discussion?
Michelle,
Yeah,
how would you do you have a preference on that?
I would love to speak to that. Yeah, I think it's really fine, Rich, if that is something you are comfortable with and that you would just let them know that you are going to take a few notes so that we can have any follow-up happen afterward, that everything you talk about is kept confidential, that they'd like to be, but that you'll be asking about some things like joining a group and service areas. And so you'll just be making a couple of quick notes in the system so that we can provide follow-up. Just a practical tip on that, kind of a small thing, but a thing that really makes a big difference, is I usually try to keep my laptop off to the side where they can kind of see the screen as well. And so I don't feel like I'm trying to hide anything. And also it's not a barrier between me and them. So it's just kind of a very practical, open approach.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that tip. So I prefer to not have the laptop, just because it does feel a little impersonal, but I'm worried about my memory and remembering all the different categories that each one has.
Yeah. Well, Kevin may have a comment on that. Kevin, did you want to say a word, or is it?
Yeah, I had two comments. One, to kind of echo what Rich said. Yeah, I used to trust my memory a lot more than I do, and I trust it less and less every day the older I get.
Yeah.
So I can kind of relate to some of that. But I feel like from what I've seen, like there's kind of some other or notes boxes. So if I'm capturing the information, even if it doesn't fit in a checkbox, there's a way to kind of cover for that, to say, oh, well, I didn't ask this to get exactly that, but I could note what I did talk about, and that may steer the staff in the right direction. And the last comment I wanted to make was just that I've used this form since I've had access to it here, and I love this version of the form so much better than the other. I feel like there was a question or two on the other that I always struggled with how to answer, and I feel like this is so much better. So I think it's a great job on this one. I just wanted to vouch for it for anybody that hadn't seen it or hadn't used it.
Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate that feedback. Yeah, I think the biggest question I struggled with on the old note system was the question of where are they at maturity wise in their relationship with the Lord. And that was just hard as a coach, even as a minister, that was really hard to kind of judge that. And you also, as a coach, you wanted to know, well, if I say that they're just kind of an infant in their spirituality, where is that information going to go? Is it ever, not that it would be used against them, but how do we use that judgment of where they're at? That used to be used in different ways, specifically just with leadership potential and possibilities. And when Jen and myself and Michelle kind of sat down and looked at this, we realized that we don't use that information the same anymore. And so that's really how we came up with this. So I appreciate that feedback.
Thank
Jen?
you so much. Oh,
Did
yeah,
you-
go ahead.
Sorry, Jen, did you have a question
I was
or
just-
comment?
I was going to add just a really quick tip. Instead of having a laptop, if you're not comfortable with that and typing notes during the session, if you want to even just jot down bullet points, you're asking about salvation, you're
Mhm,
asking
mhm.
about baptism, you're asking about membership. And then moving on from those three basics, we're looking at interest in community, which would be groups, and interest in serving. So if you even just jot down those bullet points,
Yeah.
I think that's going to help when you go to the notes. And then if they do talk about, gosh, I've got a passion for foster and adoption, then you would not, you would jot a little note and that would go into one of the boxes. So you don't have to memorize all those boxes. And like Kevin said, I tried to add enough places for adding notes that if something doesn't fit perfectly, that there's still an area to place it. But I certainly don't want you to stress out of, I have to answer everything. That is also why I included the option of forgot to ask, because sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
And-
Jen.
Also, I think you can print that off. You can print a screen page of that if that would be an easy thing for you. So, okay, guys. Well, great job, Haddon. Thank you for everyone's input was so helpful tonight. I hope you enjoyed our first call. We appreciate you staying a few extra minutes, and we'll be sending out this recording, but feel free to send me an email, or send Haddon an email if you have additional questions. We'll be happy to answer those for you, okay? Appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks a
night.
lot.
Thanks, everyone.